So it's a Friday, and you know that every single Friday we do have a big conversation that is somewhat light but very intentional. So this week has been World Breastfeeding Week, and so today we'll be having a conversation with regards to what role should men play, male and men's involvement in breastfeeding. So we have been marking the breastfeeding week, the entire week, like I said, and now it's time to wrap it up with a discussion on breast health during breastfeeding from the medical perspective and also from a social perspective. And we're talking about men's involvement during breastfeeding. What should be their role, if any?
And our guests today are very interesting individuals here. Who better to talk about men than a man that hosts the Men on NTV? So he's going to help us look at what the men should be doing socially. That is Peter Ikaga. Good morning. Nice to have you. We also have Dr. Vincent Karuhanga, who is a general practitioner. You listen to him, I think, every single Saturday on KFM. He's the K doctor, so he's here with us as well. As Dr. Grace Ruth Mavidia, Peter started this, so I'm going to let it go with Peter came onto the show and started asking everyone what their surname means. And we just found out this morning that Dr. Grace Ruth Mavidia Kakova doesn't know what her name means.
My traditional
Her traditional name means. She's the general manager of Uganda Medical Association. Nice to have you. Good morning.
Good morning.
The good doctors.
The good doctors.
Yes.
And Sir Karuhanga is here as well. Let's talk about men and their role when it comes to breastfeeding. Because, you know, when we talk about breastfeeding, what does a man have to do with that? We're like, no, that's women business. Where does a man come in? Let's start with you, Peter.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think the role of a man is to handle the pressure, predominantly. And, you know, a lot of people say, but what's that about? The moment a child is born, there's a lot of pressure on a man because his space is taken away. First of all, he gets married, the lady moves in. A couple of months back, I collected my nephew from the hospital and took him home. He had just arrived. The boy is has just been born. And he has luggage filling the boot. And I'm like, okay, what's happening?
What's going on?
So the space keeps reducing. So the men end up getting stressed out.
Don't forget they take our space on the bed because we can...
Even that too. And I also don't know why. And the doctors should tell us why...
Why can't they find their own bed?
Should babies have their own beds? I mean, and stay away. But now, as that space keeps reducing, men get frustrated. Okay, and then they end up pulling away from the whole process and be like, okay, you know what? My job is to provide. For as long as I provide, I have no business doing that. And then, but on the flip side, does it stop there? Can men be able to take a bigger role and encourage women to breastfeed? Because, and the doctors, I believe, are best placed to tell us, a child who breastfeeds is actually smarter than one who doesn't. And when the child is not smart, you start saying you're stupid like your mother. Ideally, the child has just not breastfed. So I think as men, our job is to encourage the whole breastfeeding process and not to compete with the children, because I also understand there's some men who compete for breast milk with the children.
All right, okay. So Dr. Grace, he's pointed out to the pressure that men face, their own pressure. He hasn't even touched the female pressure. We know that postpartum depression is a reality to a majority of women just after giving birth.
And their husbands.
Okay. And the husbands as well. Yes. But let's just focus on the women. What is this reality that most men really don't understand? And they end up just thinking that it's all about them and, you know, the woman is just fine.
Yes. So when a woman gives birth, first of all, before she even gets pregnant, she's worried about getting pregnant. So when she gets pregnant, there's already a 9 months to think through. So a woman, even at 1 week of pregnancy, if she knows, she will be worried and say, okay, now I'm pregnant. That is why women always come to men and say, I'm pregnant. Yeah. Isn't that funny? But it's their pregnancy, yes, it's both the couple's pregnancy. And when the man says it's okay, she feels a whole lot of calm. Now, when the baby is born, the baby is now here. First of all, does she even know how to breastfeed? That's the first thing. So many times men leave out the issue of support and trying to provide and ask, what can I help you with here and there? Sometimes they are in pain, sometimes they're bleeding too much. They also don't understand. It's a women's issue. Yes, it happens to women, but there is need for support, the social support that helps a lot. with the how they're going, how handling the baby comes in, what's going to happen in the next few months, what is coming out of me, I'm having breast milk pouring out, all that. And if the man understands that, okay, it's now a change that happens, which is part of the training and goes through antenatal care. Some of this is missed, unfortunately, but that should be encouraged in antenatal care.
You know, you've pointed out to something quite critical, antenatal care.
Yes.
And nowadays they say that you shouldn't go alone as a pregnant, girl or woman.
Yes.
Carry with you that particular spouse, the person who's responsible for that particular pregnancy, which is quite critical.
Yes.
So just before we go to Dr. Karuhanga, let us in on the realities of this woman. Because a majority of men will say, hey, I'm providing. You're saying that you need all this bougie stuff to take care of this child. I've provided. Is that the only thing that women are looking out for, they really need? What would be that X factor that would be the differentiator between them, going into postpartum depression and them being healthy and okay?
Well, looking at also where the woman has come from matters a lot. Because sometimes in a local context, as you work with the local women, they have a belief that the mother is supposed to be handling the child, and the father shouldn't be even able to come for the antenatal care. Whereas when it comes to a learned woman, someone who has gone to school, someone understands, okay, there is a man, we all have to provide equal input into the family. It's okay for them to come with a husband. So the dynamics are mainly social and economic as well, where someone says, my husband has to wake up in the morning and go and work. And I'm okay with this. But then the thing is this, how come that the men do not come? One, some of them just do not know that they're supposed to be there. And sometimes, since now it's a law in some hospitals and health centers that you should come with your man, someone just goes and pays a border man to come and represent. So the question is, are we actually promoting the male involvement? Have we tackled the root causes?
Wow.
Yes.
Doctor, Peter has talked about the pressure that women have to handle. Grace has talked about the knowledge that maybe the men don't have that is needed for them to go along with their woman for antenatal care. There is a lot of pressure here. First of all, my bed is being taken, my space is being taken. There is my money is being taken. Pampers are very expensive these days. You realize. And then I have to provide for the home, but there is a lot of change going on here. For me, there is that pressure that I have to deal with. But of course, let's not forget that my wife now, there's been a lot of change mentally, physically, and behavioral changes there as well, because now there's a baby in that space. But so what happens? We are both supposed to deal with that pressure together. But how important, because this is the reason why very many times women decide, you know what, I'm not going to breastfeed this kid for these 2 years. It's not happening. But do women really understand? Or well, let's not just say women. Do the men and women understand how important it is to breastfeed, and for how long should it be?
You see, actually, traditionally, women have breastfed for 2 years or even more. But yes, traditionally, and this has helped them in family planning to space their children. But today's woman actually will want to breastfeed for just a week, or not even breastfeeding. These days, you never know. When you see a woman not breastfeeding, you never know why she's not breastfeeding. Sometimes she has not told her husband that she's HIV positive. So we have a lot to ponder about here, because women themselves actually are not encouraging men to encourage them to do breastfeeding. What they tell you is final. I'm not breastfeeding.
And that's it.
And that's fine. But you will not know why she's telling you that.
How important is it, doctor?
But it is very, very important. It's very, very important for the family, because it is cheap and the milk is available.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Now we as men understand that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You don't know how expensive nan 1, nan 2, nan. I don't know how much. How expensive those things are. They are very, very expensive. But this milk is very available, and the only thing one needs is to put the baby to breast very early, within 30 minutes. if that is done, the milk will be available. But men think that if they have to get involved, maybe the baby in the first 30 minutes is not able to suck. They may try and suck so that I can teach this baby. so that the milk can come. You know, the milk doesn't come if you don't try to suck it out. And the earlier a woman does it, the better. And of course, a woman has to have a balanced diet. Yeah, and that balanced diet, of course, they always say, my money is mine, but your money is ours.
Yes.
So now a man has to come in to provide. But sometimes it can be terrible that a man may be thinking of doing a DNA test first. and you know, now the commonest DNA test that is done is paternity
right.
DNA test. Yeah? So sometimes a woman, I've heard of antenatal care that the men should go. Sometimes, how many men will you take?
Oh, wow.
You may not be aware who the father of the child is, but you will always take that one who seems to have a heavier
interest,
a heavier pocket.
Oh yes,
Yes.
yes.
Dr. Karuhanga, who do you hang around?
That's a very that's
a point.
What do you hang
He
around,
has a
man?
point.
Oh, yeah.
So the antenatal care bit,
Yeah.
the men may shun it because traditionally they think getting pregnant and delivering is a woman thing, but sometimes the women themselves don't know who to take there. Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah.
So is this, Peter, would you say this is a social problem?
Yeah, I think it also comes down basically to planning. I always tell people, a baby is not an accident. You can never have an accidental baby. By the time you have unprotected sex, a very likely outcome is a baby.
Yeah.
Right.
But we
Then
always,
let's say
yeah, but a lot of people act like, oops, is the baby. Then when you know that you are pregnant, you've got 9 months to plan. But again, we don't plan. Then even, and ladies, a lot of ladies think the planning is only on their side. I think you have to talk to your man about it. Like you said, you to tell him, I'm pregnant, and then you wait for his reaction. Okay. Sometimes the ladies who say, don't even say I'm pregnant, they say I'm late. And the guy says, okay.
Because
Because you don't know. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? You're late.
And then 6 months into the pregnancy, he actually tells you, you know what, you seem to have put on weight. And you're like, yeah, I told you.
I told you.
I'm late. And then he asks, what does that mean?
That's you arriving.
So what you're saying is that women should stop thinking that men understand these things.
No, tell them, start talking to him. And even before you decide to have a baby, start talking to the man about it. Let him get used to it. As men, we are selfish. We are born selfish. We like our space, we like our things. That's why you see, even as we grow up and become adults, you'll buy a piece of land, you're not doing anything with it, you keep it. You buy this, you keep it. Those are things we used to do when we were kids. You get your toys, you keep them. Even you want even the other one's toys. But that's how we are. So we need to get nurtured into sharing. So when you start talking to a man about having a baby, before you get pregnant, because the reality is, the choice to have a child or not is up to the woman. If a woman decides she's not getting pregnant, she's not going to get pregnant.
But, you know, Peter, how then do you explain men who immediately just cut you off, immediately you break that news, you know, and you break it very openly with clarity that, hey, I think I'm pregnant, even I've gone a step further, done the, you know, the pregnancy test, turned out positive. How do you explain that? What goes in the head of a man who just decides, wow, I can't handle this, I'm gone? And they really do go and get lost completely. How do you explain that?
First of all, that was the wrong man in the first place. And it goes down to the dating process. You cannot just have a baby with somebody you don't know. That's the reality. And there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, casual sex that's going on. And then what comes as an outcome? A baby. Then when you tell the guy, he's like, you've talked about paternity tests. He's like, how do I know it's mine? First thing. Because his thinking is, if you can so easily jump into bed with me, then how many other guys are you jumping into bed with? Okay, so why don't you sit down, but have a baby? It goes down to what I was saying about planning. Plan for these children. You cannot have an accidental baby. Plan for the child. If you deliberately want to have a baby with Henry, okay, then he should be part of the process. Tell him, look, this is where it's going, and let him know. Tell him, look, you know what, we are serious, or we're getting married, so a very likely outcome is a baby. If he's going to take off, that will be the time when he'll be like, no, this is a bit too serious for me. Yes, but then hoping that he will pick it up along the way, it doesn't happen. Yeah.
Dr. Grace, I find this quite disturbing that Doctor said it before, that border men are being hired to come as men, and for whatever reasons. But do you think there's been a lot of concentration on, when they're coming for antenatal care, come with a man, and that's it, come with a man. They don't usually come with a father. You see, that's what they say. They say, come with a man.
Yes.
And so the lady is put up to task to come with a man. That could be a brother, that could be a cousin, that could be the financer at that moment. So there is no concentration on teaching the men their role. The concentration is, oh, you showed up with him. Come, sit here. So there is a lot of talk on that table or in that room. But is this man really listening? Is he even interested in what you're saying? Is he on the phone the whole time or reading the papers? Or is he even thinking about his business? There's a lot of concentration on her. Oh, she managed to bring the man, so now let's talk to them. But do you really, as doctors, take time to find out if Peter, the man that has been brought today, is really interested? Or is he doing it because, well, back at home they will say, well, he did go with the woman, or everyone is going to say, what kind of man is this that doesn't go with a woman for antenatal? Okay.
Okay. Maybe I would like to start off this by, let's just have a scenario. You have come with me, then a health worker asks us, so are you the husband? The woman has already told you, please come with me and help me. Because now it becomes out of a bribe to now access the health care, which is wrong. However, that discussion, we can't end it now. We need to just go and ask the women themselves in those settings and say, why is it that you bring these men? However, I would like to point out the reasons why it is important to breastfeed, and maybe that is why maybe men would be more involved and encourage their wives as well to breastfeed. Like Doctor has already said, I pointed out a few things. One, when a baby is born, within the first 30 minutes, within the first 1 hour, they try to initiate breastfeeding. Now, most times when babies are born, they're taken away from their mothers to the warmers these days, if you see that. But when a baby is born, ideally, you put them on the chest, and then they dry them up, and then you can leave them there as long as they are warm, and then they actually look for the breast themselves. We are born with that instinct to look for the breast.
Let me take just a little bit. Now I've been asking you whether we take time to talk to the men to find out if they're interested in this. Do you take time to actually give details to this woman that you're asking to bring the father or the man? Because it could be a case of just bring the man. So even she bringing the man, she doesn't understand why she's carrying this man along, apart from, I have to go with him.
Yes. So when it comes to health education that is done during antenatal care, or before when someone is seeking contraception, that is supposed to be given to them. That even during contraception, as you're seeking, it's supposed to be a male involvement somewhere to encourage the use, and so that you're not on contraception and then someone else does not know that you're not on it. Though it's a woman's choice, yes, but then it's a family. So all that advice comes in. But then I think the root cause comes in to, do you really understand what breastfeeding means to your baby, to your child, to your family, and all that? So apart from the social bonding that it creates, that doctors already mentioned, it also creates, prevents a whole lot of illnesses in the young children. That is why you see now in Zambia Hospital has a bank for breast milk. It helps a lot of complications. So maybe if men understand that this is very important, you even tell your wife, the Uganda law says that please kindly have a maternity leave. Why don't you have this at least for this time? You can even move with your baby and breastfeed them. And now women forget that when you do not breastfeed, for direct breastfeeding, mouth to breast, you do not have a form of contraception. So they forget about contraception. And then 2 weeks down the road, you have just given birth, you have a very young child, you're already ovulating, you have sex, and then you get pregnant again.
Oh.
Yes. So breastfeeding also helps with family planning. If it's direct, about 6 times a day, 4 times at night, direct contact, that is not just expressing and then giving your child. Those alternative forms, but it won't protect you against what? Against getting pregnant again.
You know, Dr. Grace, I think now we have the solution to this confusion that men and women do have. Once you start getting serious with boy X or man X, from that conversation on contraception, how about you go with him? That's what you're saying. Go get advice on contraception together.
Yes.
Then when it comes to antenatal, pretty much phases, go together. Such that it's a journey that you're all, getting, pretty much information about. We just kick out this conversation on ignorance. But Dr. Garuhanga, let's get into this. So men are asking, okay, fine. I'm here. I'm willing to help over and above just providing financially. How should men support women during this difficult phase? It is quite difficult. Late nights without having your sleep during the day. Some even don't have help in terms of caregivers and stuff like that. So where should men step in and how should they step in?
You see, it all begins with the relationship between the two people.
Okay.
You see, people complain that a man has refused the pregnancy. But how did you approach him? How did you talk to him? Some of them just begin by quarreling, and you quarrel back because you're also shocked because you are not expecting that kind of conversation to come up. So if you are shocked, the first thing is you react to what the other person is saying, the way that person has said it. So you'll find that the man will say, no, not me. But eventually, when he goes back, he says, I made a mistake. But men never want to say sorry. They never want to say sorry. So that is the biggest problem. But that said, people, when they are playing sex together, they should have a good relationship whereby they can sit down and plan. They can sit down and talk about issues in a normal way, not with raised voices so that the neighbors can listen.
Okay.
You never know, the neighbor could be the one who impregnated the lady. And you see, and you let the cat out of the bag. Yes, the way we communicate is really very, very important. Okay. And you cannot go with your woman for antenatal care if you are a side cock or she's a side chick. But what is true?
Side cock. Okay.
Yes. what is true if you are really married or you have a serious relationship? You should first of all be discussing issues, including having children, family planning, when you should and then the issue of breastfeeding will come in, because it's not an issue which benefits only the mother, because the mother, when she does breastfeeding, the first thing is that the womb will contract quickly and more effectively and stop bleeding, because in Uganda here, one of the biggest problems for our mothers is actually bleeding during pregnancy or during during delivery and after delivery. That's a very big problem. And secondly, the bonding issue also comes in, bonding with the baby. You know, today with our women going to work all the time, they leave the baby with the house girl, and they start calling the house girl mommy and start calling the mother auntie. And those things are happening, but this helps bonding, because that baby, you see, can recognize a mother.
Right.
Even when it is still in the mother's womb, it hears what the mother is saying and it knows the voice of the mother and can differentiate this mother from very many other women. And that one is very, very important. Then this woman will also be carrying out family planning, as Dr. Grace was saying. The family planning will also be there. Then apart from that, this lady is less likely to suffer from certain cancers, cancer of the breast, for example. Yeah, so she's protected. Then the baby actually gets a lot, much more from breastfeeding than the mother and the father of the child.
All right. So quickly, I think as we now try to help now men practically on what they can do. to support this woman. You know, we are very emotional beings, and the simple little things do matter, and they go a long way. So I think we can just take a round of maybe just you advising men how they can just offer that social support. Is it when you're back to work? Is it texting her? You know, or when you come back at home, you know, helping her take that bath, especially them that go through CS, you know, cesarean section. It's not easy. So how can men just help them to think out of the box? Because I think men are not creative that way. So can we help them today? I think we can start with you, Dr. Karuhanga.
It's very interesting. I think you should have started with Grace.
Okay, Grace.
Because there she's much more aware.
About the emotional bit.
Yes.
Well, I will say that men should always listen to the women, and then also marry your best friend or get involved with only your best friend. That is the beginning of it all, because you're very free with communicating to them and saying, hey, I'm having this challenge. And when they come back home, just when you leave your best friend at home, you cannot just leave. You have to consult and say, are you fine? Is this okay? Can I help out with this? Can I help you change this? That's why you see, I'm not going to say, okay, no, the diaper is yours, please. Oh, your breasts are hurting. I really don't know. I don't know what to do. But I would rush out and even call a doctor and say, so my wife complains about this, what should I do? So be best friends and understand what she's going through, because you'll be openly talking to each other. And then that way you'll understand that breastfeeding is important to you, and not to fight for the bed as well.
Peter, I think it was the last week when we were talking to counselors here, and they said the biggest problem we have today is because relationships are beginning on the wrong foot.
Correct.
Is because before people even get into marriages or any relationships, they're beginning on the wrong foot. They're already having sex before marriage, which is already a sin before Allah, God, whoever it is that you believe in. So it seems to be more of a social problem that we are having. You deal a lot with the men, so I want you to talk to the man out there and the lady out there, because as Dr. Grace has said, it's very important for us to have that relationship where, you know, it's a friend. When someone is a friend, it's very hard for you to just walk away and leave them and, you know, take care of themselves. The only reason we have people this is my boobs are hurting, so what do you want me to do? Is because you're not friends with that person. You when you're friends, you can find ideas on how to help. So what is the best way to handle this?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think, first of all, you said it very rightly. Start the relationship on the right footing. Don't jump into bed unless you jump into bed with your best friend. Then men also need to plan. And it's just about planning. The more, I believe, in this good country of ours, if we would plan more and execute our plans, would be so much better. And last but not least, I think we need to speak a language that men understand, the language of money. The two doctors have talked about the fact that breastfeeding is a form of contraception. And also, it's the cheapest food you can ever.
Now I know very many men out there like, I think she wants to breastfeed more.
Yes,
if she can do 3 years, even better.
Yes, for 6 months.
6 months of free food.
So if we speak money is a language a lot of men understand. And say, look, you're going to be saving money if your woman breastfeeds. You're going to be practicing birth control if she breastfeeds. Your child is going to be a much better child in the future. You're going to spend less money on healthcare. Right. You're going to spend less money in school because they're not going to repeat classes.
Yeah.
If that's the language we speak, I believe men will get it.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Dr. Karam, your parting shots.
Yeah,
I know.
The other issue I was going to talk about was about relationships these days. We are having so much of transactional sex. Transactional sex is sex with a person where you're expecting to have gifts or money. And this is in Uganda, Rwanda. I think this is becoming a very big problem. And this is why actually now we are getting a lot of HIV in the younger age group. And it's not only HIV, of course. HIV comes with unprotected sex, and you will get also babies who people will claim are unwanted or accidental babies. And these, we shall not hide away from this. It is now the biggest problem we are having in Uganda, transactional sex. And girls are getting married after transactional sex and continuing
with the same practice.
Wow. and then
Through a
breaking
marriage.
up families. And it's not only the girls who are doing this, even the boys are now going with their mamas.
You know,
Because
that's
of
a whole-
the same thing.
Right.
So if you have such a relationship, you will end up with denying that you are the father.
Right.
And you have no time really to advise about breastfeeding when you have such a transactional relationship.
Okay.
I think, Doctor,
yeah.
we'll have you guys one more time. Just we talk about transaction.
Yes, transactional
That's
sex.
one.
Thank you so much for coming in studios.
Sounds like a
Now we
topic
know.
for
I
another day.
think the root cause is just people not starting off relationships on the right footing.
Yeah.
And that is key. Thank you so much, Dr. Grace Ruth, General Manager at UMA, for coming in. Thank you so much for your insight. Also, Peter Iganga. You all know him. I don't need to give him a title for that. And also Dr. Vincent Karuhanga. Thank you so much for making time and for coming to Morning at NTV. Keep your views coming. The hashtag is Morning at NTV across all the social media platforms. At this point in time, we'd like to link over to Stephen Bida so you can get to know how traffic looks like at this point in time. All right, we're being told we're having a technical hitch. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.